those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen. Nerds International proudly presents.
We want to take you on a quest for knowledge. One that will take us from ancient medieval fantasy across the far reaches of space to the distant future. To many savage worlds.
So welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to pinnacle entertainment savage worlds aimed at beginners and veterans alike. So we have a special episode today. Well, not so special, just the fact that usually at this time on Sunday mornings here, Sunday afternoon in in Europe, and Sunday evening in Australia, this is when we record our regular episode. Just that this week, Gary's on vacation. He's camping somewhere or something like that, drinking to, stupor, something like that. So I hope you have fun, Gary. Alexis is running Savage Con in London, their own little convention. Been seeing pictures on Facebook and looks like they're having a lot of fun. So Lex is not here, and Manuel left the show. Yeah, left for better things, for Veiled Fury, for his own campaigns, preparing games. So we wish good luck to Manuel and his new endeavors, and we appreciate his contribution to the show. He started out with a guest appearance, and then we invited him and left his mark, and now it's time to move on. So what are we going to do today? Well, it's just Paris and I. At least I have Paris. I don't have to record this by myself.
G'day, everyone. Good evening, good morning. No, good evening for me. Good morning to you guys in the States. So this isn't live. What am I doing? I'm all nervous. I'm on my own. I haven't got the support of Alexis and Gary and Manuel. I don't know. I'm in the spotlight. Very frightening times, but I'll try and struggle on through. So I'll start again. G'day, everyone. First of all, just want to give a shout out to Manuel. Spent a lot of time listening to the podcast with Manuel on board, and I'm a big fan of his Savage Shadowrun work, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the projects that he comes up with in the future, and wish him well. And not that we won't be speaking to him, I'm sure, but in terms of the podcast itself, he's going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, and you mentioned frightening. Well, that's sort of my segue to what we're going to do. It's our review every month because of our Patreon support. We can do one of those reviews, and this month was Codex Infernus, the Savage Guide to Hell. And usually we'd record this, whenever we can, but it's the summer. It's kind of difficult to get people together, so I figured we'd take this opportunity to review Codex Infernus. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back with our regular programming, our regular episode. All right, guys. So let's go between the covers with Codex Infernus.
Oh yeah! Welcome, one and all, to Between the Covers, the hottest and most greased up segment on this podcast. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, things are gonna get a bit weird in here.
No, it's nothing sexy.
Sorry, what?
It's kind of where we talk about a Savage Worlds book from cover to cover.
Like some sort of book club.
Well, essentially, yes.
Well, in that case, I'm leaving. Oh yeah. See you later.
I'm excited to talk about this book because, I mean, it's not just a setting. Actually, it's mostly not a setting. What it is basically, well, from the name, The Savage Guide to Hell, it's basically a companion to Hell. Now we have the horror companion, which is a lot more broad, right? It touches on a lot of aspects of horror and all that it entails, but Codex Infernus is basically just about hell, demons, and that type of thing. So
so it's a Savage Worlds book. I was a bit worried when you first said that it was a companion guide. I had this horrible feeling we were going on a holiday trip, and as tourists would be running around hell with this book asking for where the local bar was or the toilet is, and that's probably not a good thing to do in hell.
That would be a good hook for campaign. Adventure.
A Savage one sheet. Find the bathroom in hell.
Yep. You know, you order your meal, and as soon as you take the first bite, you end up in hell. Never know. Or maybe you stuck there. Your car won't work. So this book I got from Amazon. Hardcover. It is the graphic novel size, and it was a steal. It was like $24 on Amazon, and I have Amazon Prime, so I get free shipping. I couldn't pass up on that. Gorgeous book, 160 pages. The project was managed by David Jarvis, and this is from Gunmetal Games. You might be familiar with their products. They do Interface Zero, which has great production value, and this isn't any different. It's a beautiful book, right? You got writers like Daryl Hayhurst, Darren Pierce, Monica Valentinelli, Richard Woolcock, and Tommy Brunell. Some of these people we've had on the show before, so great stuff. Like I said, the artwork is top notch. The trade dress, everything's easy to read. The character portraits are amazing. I mean, we're not talking like cartoonish demons that look like you want to laugh when you look at it. It's more like, whoa, this is scary stuff. This is gnarly. So good stuff. The only thing I can say that isn't really that great about the cover is the title. There's no contrast from the title to the artwork. It's really dark. So you look at it from a distance and you can hardly read what the title is. If you found this on a rack in the bookstore, it wouldn't jump out. It would just blend in.
For me, I actually bypassed this book a couple of times, as I was saying before, because at the moment I'm sort of overwhelmed with fantasy, and I'm sort of looking for other things. I actually discounted this book because it's got this beautiful fantasy style art on the cover, but thankfully now that I've had a look in it, and as we'll discuss as we go along, this has a lot more to offer than just for fantasy games, way more.
Right, because I mean, sure, the campaign setting in there, Igeron or Igeron, I'm not sure, but that only takes maybe 30 or some pages from the book. The rest of the 160 pages, it's full of material that you can use in a modern setting, sci-fi setting, and whatever you can think of, which makes it really valuable. I think it's very useful companion, even though it's not called a companion. To me, it basically is a companion with a mini setting in it, right? And a full description of hell. So yeah, you're right, Paris. It's more than just fantasy.
And there's some amazing modern day and sci-fi artwork that's hell related inside, which has already inspired me. So I think for the cover, I would have loved to have seen maybe a mashup of different timelines on the front. I wouldn't have discounted it back then, but it's still a beautiful cover, so you can't take that away from it.
Oh, absolutely beautiful cover. I think it's a homage to another painting that was in a D&D book at some point, but I'm not sure. Like, the composition is similar to another piece of artwork, and it's pretty great. So we received a bunch of questions from people. Thank you. We'll try to answer these as they come up in the presentation there, and if not, at the end, because some of those questions might already, get answered as I go through my presentation. So the first chapter is the Book of Creation. So you get a bunch of character options. This is where you create your characters. You find the new edges, hindrances, that type of thing. So new races, you get 3 new races. The Cambion, which are half demons. So that race fits into the Aeron, their setting in there, but they also say that it can be just a half demon in your modern campaign, so you can use them for that. It's the same stat block. Then the trolls, they're swamp creatures. They're a bit cartoonish. We're not talking like the big bad, very strong trolls. I mean, sure, they're still trollish, but they're a bit different. And now you might be wondering, what does that have to do with hell and Aeron and all that? But you'll find out later. And then the Varg, this is actually 3 subspecies. The Allfang, Wolfman, Tarok, they're birds of prey. They're like were crows type of guys. And then the Riva, the Ratman. They remind me of the Skaven in Warhammer a lot.
Actually, the Tarok remind me more of a beefy version of the Skeksis from the Dark Crystal.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they don't look like Tengu. That's right. No, you're right.
So with these races, I have to admit, I was a bit confused by these races. As in, they all look to me like denizens of hell, and I'm not sure where they were leading with that, or maybe it's something in the fantasy part that I haven't come across yet.
Yeah, basically they're races that are part of the Aeron setting, but I mean you could use these races for whatever. Maybe they have some type of veil where in the real world, the modern world, they don't look like that, but they can hide behind this kind of veil.
Are they inherently evil as races?
You know what? I don't remember. I don't know.
I suppose they could be either way, but
yeah. I mean, the Cambion obviously can be a good creature, but maybe there's a part of them that's half demon, obviously. So yeah, you get these 3. Then you get archetypes, and by archetypes I don't mean like a small paragraph to give you an idea of what you can play. They're basically pre-gens, right? You get a full set for fantasy and one for modern. So you could take these, put them on a character sheet, and you have your pre-gens to run a one sheet or even a campaign, or if not, it can at least give you an idea of the type of characters that you can play with this. Then new hindrances, 3 new ones. One interesting one for me was Devil's Mark. What that means is that you're considered supernaturally evil if someone has the champion and holy warrior edge, so you're affected by that. You also get a permanent mark of corruption, and we'll talk about corruption later, and -4 to charisma with those who know that you're marked by the devil. So it's a cool edge. It fits, right? Hell, demons, and all that. So, and then the new edges, you get 18. I counted 18 new edges. There's a whole new section for edges, a new category of edges called the Shadow Touched Edge. And what that means, it's nothing dirty. It just means it's dark gifts. It's the result of exposure to infernal powers, and they grant you supernatural demonic abilities. You need to start with the edge of the same name. It's called Shadow Touched. You take that one first, and when you get that, you get +2 against fear checks. You need to pick an additional hindrance that sort of fits with this, and this edge becomes the requisite for any other Shadow Touched edges. And
sorry, Eric. The hindrance that you have to take when you're Shadow Touched, is there a specific kind of hindrance that you have to take?
No,
like, does it have to be a demon-based one?
No, it's an edge. You don't have to take a hindrance to take that edge.
Okay.
The edge is called Shadow Touch. So yeah, you take that one, and then that's probably the most well-developed part of the new edges in that chapter. You can get something like Infernal Ally, where you can summon allies, one ally from hell for a day. That's another edge. And then Masque de Mal. So French, a little French for you here. You get to wear the face of a deceased person. So if you've watched, man, I can't think of the name right now. The Song of Fire and Ice series, Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones with.
Yeah, when they steal the faces and they can look like other people, so you can do that. And you get a bunch of them. Some you gain armor, some you gain like a kind of touch attack and that type of thing. So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool options right there, which would fit with the Cambion and all that.
It does. Actually leads to one of the questions that we've been sent, and it is from Sean Christopher Charles Richer. I'm assuming that's one person. Yes. Yeah, he was asking about the edge Hellbeast, which is a cool looking edge. It's a veteran edge, which allows you to gain a Hellbeast. You can either get a number of lesser Hellbeasts that you can control, or a greater Hellbeast, a singular greater Hellbeast. And he asked the question, how would that work if the character had also taken Beastmaster as an edge? And did we see any inherent issues with players taking an edge that offers multiple pets at the same time? I didn't think so, but do you have any idea on that, Eric?
Well, I actually asked the guy who designed that edge, Richard Woolcock. I want a clarification on that. Basically, in Savage Worlds, unless the edge specifically tells you that you can take it again, you can't. You can only take it once. So Beastmaster, you can only take it once. You can't take it every advance to build yourself a zoo around you, right? It's just one. Now, Hellbeast actually was designed more with the Followers edge than the Beastmaster edge. And again, in the description, and you've read it too, it says if that creature dies, you need to take it again to get a new one. So you can't stack it again. You'd have to wait to have that Hellbeast killed to take it again and get a new one or a new set. So no, you can't build yourself an army with it. Now, henchmen you could do that with, but that's different. It's not a Shadow Touched edge, and obviously they're not from hell. They're more like mercenaries or something like that, right? So,
but the way I read it is I could have a beast from my Beastmaster Edge, which would be a worldly beast or a terrestrial beast,
right.
And then I could have a hellspawn beast. Now the difference between the two is, from my understanding, is Beastmaster. If your Beastmaster creature dies, I think it's 2d6 days or something before another one can be reinstated. Whereas with the Hell Beast one, if the creature dies, you actually have to take the edge again. So you've essentially lost a slot, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's badass, right?
So
you get
so it's a real risk reward kind of thing.
Yep, you get a hellhound. Wow, pretty nasty. I like it.
It is.
Now, the next part are, well, you get one new spell, which is actually a spell that was already in the Horror Companion. It's the Banish spell. And then, but the probably one of my favorite sections of the book are the new trappings for your powers. So you get a whole list of them, like Holy Purification Ward. And the ward, it works basically like demons or undead must make fear checks when exposed to your power. So imagine you have the, armor power on, but that armor as a ward trapping on it. So maybe some shiny light coming out, something like that. And every time a demon comes close to you, they have to make a fear check, or else they'll get panicked and they'll run away. So I think that's pretty cool. You could make it with a bunch of different powers too. Barrier, let your imagination go wild. I love that trap.
Yeah.
You get Infernal, Soulfire, which means that when you soak damage from Soulfire, it's spirit instead of vigor. That's pretty cool. If you're gonna go against, the real tough guys, but their spirit's not as strong as their vigor, something like that. And then you steal their soul as you're dealing damage to them. Wow.
It's a real Cenobite moment, isn't it, from Hellraiser?
Yeah.
Tear your soul apart.
Well, this is...
I love the Necrotic one. That's cool.
Yeah.
With the festering unlife. That is really cool. I was just thinking, how cool would it be if you had to play a character that had Necrotic as a trapping, and if they do kill a creature, 24 hours later, that creature comes back as undead. Doesn't specifically say they have control of it. So you've got the problem where you're running around taking out bad guys, but unfortunately you're making more bad guys. That could get problematic.
Yeah.
But cool. I like it.
That fits, and that might explain too if one of your villains have that power, and people, the heroes are just walking through a dungeon or whatever, or old abandoned warehouse, and they find all these bodies, and as they're walking through, now all of a sudden these corpses start coming back to life. That's very nice.
Or it'd be an awesome way to make a nemesis, like a really cool, like you finally kill a big boss or something, and you think that's it, don't have to deal with him ever again, but he comes back as undead and starts his new nefarious plan all over again. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I know if I was a player and I picked that trapping for it, I would want to hear stories about the people I killed coming back to life, especially like in a modern setting, like you find out in the newspaper that this guy came back to life and started eating brains, or he's on the news and you can see him in the background just walking, shambling like a zombie, and you killed him the day before. That'd be really fun.
Could you imagine Alexis or Gary having that trapping, and they'd be just walking around, "Hey, wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't nothing to do with me. Wasn't me."
Yeah. Well, that might encourage murder hobos, though. So I don't know, but it's fun.
Well, it might curb murder hobos.
Yeah, that too. So yeah, that's basically the overview of this chapter. Now the next chapter is the Book of Making, and this one is about gear, and gear, magic items, that kind of thing. So you can make while using holy symbols, right? You're a cleric or priest, and you use that. So it becomes an alternative to the Holy Warrior Edge, and you use Test of Will while holding your holy symbol. And then if you make a touch attack with that symbol, it causes plus d6 damage. And you can also use it to pin a creature using it's like a ranged grapple attack with your holy symbol. So maybe you play in a modern setting where there are no arcane backgrounds, so this becomes really useful. You know, there's several reasons why you might not want arcane backgrounds in your setting. I mean, you look at ETU, there's really isn't any arcane backgrounds that the players can play, but they're still going to have to battle evil. Even the magic are basically just a ritual. It's just a knowledge that you tap into. So something like that with holy symbols, wow. Yeah. No need for arcane background. Anybody can hold it, but it still uses faith. Use faith skills. So you still have to take that even if you don't have the arcane background for it.
Yeah. When I read that, what really struck me about taking faith skill without taking the miracles arcane background, I couldn't help but think of the Michael Carpenter character out of the Dresden Files. Have you read that at all, Eric?
No, I have not.
No. Well, Michael Carpenter is a modern day Knight of the Cross. He carries a sword which has a nail in the hilt, which was one of the nails used to as part of the crucifixion of Jesus. Now, he doesn't have any magical powers himself, but he has this indomitable faith in the Lord and in being right and being good. And there are times in the stories where Michael is facing demons and other evil things, and it's just his pure faith that stops him from being overcome or being driven down. And using faith as a skill in that instance would be just absolutely perfect if you were trying to recreate characters like that.
Yeah, that's what I like, versatility. Then the blessings, so you can use your faith skill that we just mentioned to create holy water. There you go. And you can bless weapons, which means that if a weapon is blessed, or blessed, call it whatever you want, you would roll your faith skill instead of the plus d6 damage on the raise. So the more faithful you are, the more damage you can deal to those evil creatures, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. No, I like the way they've done that. That's excellent.
Purification, that's to cleanse an area, and it makes the ground, it makes it difficult ground for evil creatures. So it could be like a church that you purify, or whatever place, and then you can use that also as a ritual to cleanse someone, and then you send them on a holy quest to remove corruption, and that this becomes a dramatic task to remove a curse or a haunt on a place. So your building is haunted. Using skill, using faith, you in a dramatic task like a ritual, you can remove a haunt or, like I said, a curse on someone. So there's a lot more to it, but I can't just talk about this for half hour. So let's move on to the angelic and demonic weapons. Those work a lot like the blessed weapons, but they're more powerful. They have an added ability, and like with the demonic weapons, you need to make a corruption check at the end of each session, or else you'll gain corruption. And it makes sense, right? You're using a demonic weapon, so it's going to taint you in some way. And yeah, we'll get to corruption. That'll be in the Book of Law.
Don't ever want a corrupted taint. Ever.
Nope, you don't want that.
Nope.
Like a few examples, the Aerelon, obviously that's an angelic weapon. It deals with courage, so it gives you +2 to resist fear and intimidation. That's one of the added ability of this angelic weapon. And then for the demons, Lucifer, well, it's been corrupted by the deceiver, so you get a free D6 in persuasion and +2 charisma. But you also get this kind of uncontrollable rage, so you gain the vengeful major hindrance and the berserker edge. So
you run around yelling at people madly that you're really, really sexy, and you have to listen to what I do, what I want.
Basically, I mean, who wouldn't want that weapon, right? It's the party weapon.
Yeah, right. Except you get a few drinks and you get a bit too aggro, apparently. So the night's not gonna end well.
Yeah, that's basically the bad drunk weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You also get the Halforged Weapons. Those are more specific. They're more like artifacts, basically. And it gains, every Halforged weapon gains the Halforged trapping, which means when you use it against good, the creatures that are considered good, it deals +4 damage and it glows red hot. So on a hit, there's a chance that the target may catch on fire. So you roll that every time. If you use it for armor, the armor is fireproof, half damage from fire. And an example of one is called the Gauntlet of Hate. It's basically an oversized spike gauntlet. Now, I'm not much into superhero stuff, but isn't there a Thanos' gauntlet or something like that?
Yeah, that's got the Infinity Stones in it, which is a little beyond this. Even Mephisto couldn't beat that in the comics, but okay. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's an oversized pike gauntlet. It gives you +2 to fighting when related to grappling. So when you try to grapple someone, and then when you cause damage from grappling someone, you add 2d12 damage to that grappling.
Damn.
So and yeah, if you incapacitate a foe with this, that foe is incinerated, and their flesh, while the wielder's flesh underneath is stained black. So that's one example of one of those artifacts. They've got like a dozen of them examples, and of course you can make your own. So some of them even become like plot, like one of the demons, the greater demons. Later, it used to belong to him, and now he's looking for it. So, yeah, cool stuff.
Do you think they'll do a Codex Heaven?
Well, they did release a Forces of Light supplement for that. Yeah, it's about 50 pages, but it works with this one. It just gives more options for the Forces of Light. I haven't had a chance to really read it. I just skimmed it when I received it, but because that was part of the Kickstarter as well. I was in on that, so I've been receiving that stuff. Yep.
Is it? Can you purchase it? Can you buy it?
Yeah, it's available on drive-through now. PDF. I think it's $5 or something like that. All right, the Book of Law. That's the next chapter, and these are basically the setting rules. So you have corruption. Finally, we talked about it earlier. Basically, it's do evil, and you gain corruption. It's like a journey to the dark side. Doesn't that remind you of Star Wars? You could use that rule for Star Wars, going to the dark side using corruption. There you
Actually,
go.
this leads to another question that you've received, Eric, from Conrad Erasmus Newbert. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is there anything in there about inner demons and about the human conscious? And then he goes on to ask, what type of devils are Alexis and Gary? Am I an angel, as in No, but and how does what do we classify Eric as? So which one of those do you want to start with? Alexis and Gary, me, or you?
Alexis and Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. They're clown demons? I don't know. Maybe like kids.
Come on, there's a certain refinement to Alexis, so I sort of see maybe succubus, possibly. You think?
Not really a seducer.
No?
No.
Isn't he?
Maybe more Gary.
What about is Gary the great seducer then? Is Gary the succubus?
Yeah, Gary's the seducer. Gary's the succubus that's been, well, incubus for male that's been eating too much food.
I think Alexis has too many Halforged weapons that have been blessed by Satan himself. There's far too much anger in that individual. I think that's what's happened there.
Yeah, maybe Alexis has been spending too much time in hell, and that's what's wrong with him.
Not too long. Take over.
But dealing with internal demons, I mean, yeah, this would be it, the corruption, I think. Because, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, there's going through what I read in there. There's a whole, as I'm sure you're about to go through. There's a whole segment of different things that can happen to your character, such as temptation and becoming damned and getting devil's luck. So from what I quickly skimmed over this was really about how dealing with evil on a semi-permanent basis, I guess, would affect the character and the choices that they have to make while trying to walk that fine line between good and evil and still achieving their objectives. Is that the way you saw it? Am I off the track?
Yeah, you said it better than I could have. Yeah, that's basically it, because the rest is basically role play, right? So there's no mechanics for that, but corruption really, to me, illustrate that inner struggle, doing bad things, and at some point, it might be too much. You can't battle with your own demons anymore, and you're done, because, well, how it works is you get a new derived stat called willpower, and that's half your spirit plus 2. And now, so you have to make corruption rolls, and that's basically the GM's, when it comes up. It's a spirit check with penalties, and if you fail, you gain a mark of corruption. When you have more, as many or more mark of corruptions than your willpower, you're damned. And when you're damned, it means that you suffer plus 4 damage from cold iron. You get no benefits from the arcane background miracles. So if your cleric, your priest is trying to heal you and you're damned, it won't work. If they're trying to bless you, it won't work. You're not a good creature anymore. And
can no longer get your taint fixed.
No, you're done. And that means that when you die, you join the ranks of the defiled in hell.
Yep.
So you don't want that, right?
So you were alluding to Star Wars there with the dark side, but this trope is used through a number of many stories. It could be anything from a wizard or a warrior in fantasy that has to use tainted magic or tainted items and what that does to their soul eventually.
Yeah.
It could be used in a superhero setting, much like Spawn. So Spawn has all his powers that come from hell, essentially, but he has to try and walk that line and not completely succumb, although I think he does every once in a while and comes back. What other settings do you reckon you could use that sort of walking the line and being tempted by evil in? ETU, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, Rippers even.
Yeah,
Rippers. I think Rippers has something with sanity along those lines already. But yeah, anything where you feel that morality is an important theme in your campaign, where it's not all black and white, there might be some gray in there. I think it would work if you want to explore that theme. Most of the time, it's just we're the good guys and we're gonna murder everything in our way to prove that the good is better. But it all depends on your game. So yeah, that's the first setting rule for it. Then you get demonic pacts. Basically, it's a social conflict that you play out with a demon. Well, first you have to make contact with the demon, that type of thing, and then the benefits of that is that, well, depending how well you roll during that social conflict, you will gain XP. So you level up just by asking something, and they'll give you XP. But the stronger the demon, because there are different kinds. You get the lesser demons, the greater demons, and then demon gods, basically. So the higher it is you make a pact with, the more power you're likely to gain. But there's also the drawback, which means how long you have left to live, because they're gonna come and claim their soul from the pact. So the stronger the demon, the less time you have to live, basically. And this is all determined with die rolls and that type of stuff. It's really well done, but we can't really get into the details. Well done, like I said. Next up, demonic possession. So it's basically the puppet power, but it's permanent, and it's a modified test of will to, see if you get possessed and stuff, and that lasts until the demon is banished. And the possessed can make a spirit roll from time to time to regain control. So I guess it depends what kind of campaign you want to run. If one of the player characters is possessed, do you want to go on, or do they become an NPC? That's up to you. They don't really get into that, but yeah, it's one of the tropes of hell and demonology, right? You get possessed and that type of stuff. So there's a whole set of rules for that, to deal with that. Which is pretty cool, because when you think about it, demonic possession is a mainstay of many horror movies. Yeah.
The Exorcist and etc. But I've never found, like, for instance, with the horror companion, that's not really addressed, is it? It's not something that I can dive in there and look for. So to have a look at these sections on exorcism and how hell changes a man, which is an interesting way to title a chapter, title a paragraph. I thought it was handled very well. So I strongly recommend people give that a look if they're looking to do that in any of their horror games.
Yeah, streamlined, fast, fun, and furious. So
because
demonic
possession by demons should always be fun, fast, and furious.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably doomed when that happens. But that leads to exorcisms, right? If you're possessed, someone's going to try to chase that demon out. And, of course, there's the banish entity power. That's from the same one repeated from the horror companion. But like we mentioned before, that you might play in a campaign where nobody has access to arcane backgrounds. So what do? There's a new way to chase a demon out of someone. It's called brute force. Basically, you need to almost kill that person, and then the demon has to make a spirit check, or is pushed out from excessive damage. So, and then you can probably trap it with your holy symbol and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
And here we have a patented Wild Die Pro Savage GM pro tip. And what you do is you grab a super soaker and fill it with pea and ham soup, and during the exorcism, you just squirt all your players. Really adds to the atmosphere. Awesome.
I could see Gary,
if you can make your head spin around too, we don't recommend. Don't try that at home.
Gary with a mouthful of pea soup and just nasty. Yeah. So yeah, it gives you more options to exercise someone, your teammate or whatever. Then you have hell changes a man if you spent time in hell and then you manage to escape and you come back to the normal world. You need to make a spirit test, and if you fail, you get one of those random hindrance from a table. They give you a table, so you're obviously scarred from the experience, and it's really simple way of dealing with that. And yeah, they know you're there. This basically means that undead have +2 to notice to detect living creatures in hell, because they can smell you, they can sense you. And that's almost like Romero's zombies, right, where they seem to be able to smell people everywhere. That could be used for that too.
It's because of the taint. They can smell the taint.
Next chapter, the Book of Igeron, or Igeron, that's the setting. It's around 40 pages, and it's written as a personal account from people that were there, from the history, and then, of course, you get the gazetteer later. Now, this was an interesting choice. I like the fact that it was written like that. It's basically written like a novel. This whole chapter, and especially the history part, and that drew me in. I really liked that part. Basically, it's mages that discovered portals, and they want to decipher them, and they do, and they gain access to this other world where there's a bunch of other portals, and then they discover hell, and because of that, hell armies spill over and come back to Igeron and invade, and basically the whole world is in almost an apocalypse stage right now. So this is the gist of it. I mean, obviously 40 pages, I can't really summarize it really well, but yeah, that works well for the history. However, for the gazetteer part, it's like letters that were written by commanders of armies or spies working for the good side, and they report back to their masters or other people, and they tell you what they encountered in their journey. That didn't really work well for me. I guess I'm just too used to a gazetteer where it's really structured, and you get the small paragraphs with titles, subtitles for each paragraph, so that if the crew happens to go to that place, I can easily just open up the book and find out about the important people in that region, the politics, that type of thing. But this is where they kind of lost me. I can't even remember anything I read about that gazetteer. I couldn't retain any information, and maybe it's just how my brain works, but I didn't really quite like that part. Granted, there's a great map that goes with it, and the cartography in this book is just off the chart. It's awesome.
Yeah, the pictures. I'm flicking through it now. So you're talking about the Book of Hell at this point, yeah?
No, Book of Igeron.
No, you haven't got to that stage yet.
Yeah, Igeron. It's just their setting that comes with this, starting what page in the 40s, something like that. Yeah, starts,
I see what you mean. There's a fair bit to sort of eke out, but look, in terms of sparking ideas, the artwork in this is gorgeous, and I wouldn't say the writing is poor. Just as you said, it's just trying to get out those core bits. If you're in the middle of a game, that would be a pain in the taint. But I've got taint on the brain at the moment. It's terrible. No, it looks fantastic though. It's stunning.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to sit and read it.
Yeah, you should. No, it's a good read. I mean, it's just, for me, my brain just doesn't work that way. It's like a wall of text that you have to read for each region of that map. But now the next chapter that you just mentioned, the Book of Hell, that one is around 20 pages or so. And again, another gorgeous map. I mean, that map of Hell is just, wow. Amazing. The colors and everything, the detail, very well done. But now that structure, this is basically just a gazetteer. And it gives you hazards, denizens, and politics. And this is a lot more structured to me. Like, it's not written as an account. It's more written like, encyclopedia type of format. And my brain can wrap itself around that a lot better. I had fun reading that part too.
So did that part on Hell, did that inspire you, or would it inspire you to run an adventure or campaign in Hell?
Well, yeah, actually it did. I ran the Savage Rifts one for the show while reading that because they end up in Hell, and I used Codex Infernus to run that game. Of course, Rifts, but Rifts was basically just the characters. The whole adventure was in Hell, and I used a bunch of stuff from that to, because to me it makes sense, right? Rifts, you go to different places, portals and all that, and portal to Hell. It was just easy for me to make that connection.
So even playing D&D, I always struggled with, as a GM, I always struggled with planes adventures, going to various planes. I could never quite wrap my head around it. So with this depiction of Hell as a plane that characters can explore, do you feel they did a good job with making it accessible? I guess for me, Hell, I find it very hard to try and imagine Hell and really give Hell the gravitas that it would deserve in a game. But wax lyrical over the way it's laid out, but do you feel it's provided enough of that to make it really compelling?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think, the Christian type of Hell, right? Because it's mostly like that, but as you'll see in a little bit, they even go beyond that. But the section on Hell itself, around 20 pages, really good stuff. It's basically, another world, right? And so they talk about each region and who's in control of that region, what's the landmarks for each part. So that works really well. But probably my favorite part are the sidebars, because the text itself, it's just text, right? There's no mechanics. But then you get the sidebars that offers mechanic for it. So let's say dining in Hell. Well, any food supply immediately becomes rotten, maggot infested in Hell. So the defiled, the demons, and then the interlopers, which are just humans or regular people that go to Hell, they're called interlopers. So they can't starve to death, but they still get hungry. So every day you make a spirit test, and if you succeed, you're not hungry, and then you can heal one wound. But the wound, the flesh is affected cosmetically. It is tainted. You like that word, right? Tainted.
Yeah, I do.
And
that's the word of the night.
And demonic in appearance. So let's say you got in a fight, you got slashed, and then you succeed on your spirit test. That wound is healed, but now it's like demonic flesh that you got on yourself.
Oh, it's got an eyeball in it.
Yeah.
There's an eyeball, and it keeps looking around. That would be really cool.
Little tentacles sticking out, like out of your eyeball or something. I love that. But if you fail, you gain a level of fatigue, and that maxes out at 2 because you can't starve. But it still gives you rules of how to deal with that, and there's even more to it than that. But next chapter, that's the one I was just talking about, the Book of Worlds. So this is basically the GM advice section, how to run this game, how to use it, GM advice and all that. So a really cool part, and this has no mechanics, but it just might just inspire you. It's what is your hell like, and influences from various civilizations throughout history. So they go from Sumerian all the way to the DMV. For those who don't know what that is, Department of Motor Vehicles. That could be a version of hell. So they tell you, you know, how these civilizations, these religions, saw hell, if they had a version of hell. And like the Vikings, it's going to be ice cold. Some of them wouldn't work as well as others for a campaign, because it's basically just like it's all happening in your head. You're trapped in your own self, and you know, regret and being tortured your whole life, and it's not really interesting for a campaign. But they still try very hard to give you ideas to, you know, customize your own version of hell, because like I said before, this is basically just the Christian version of hell in there, but you can make it different. There's even references to, I think it's Taoism, I don't know how to pronounce it, Taoism, the
Taoism,
yeah, Taoism, how that basically inspired the Big Trouble in Little China movie, and so that's their version of hell. And of course, funny parts like the DMV, right? You're stuck waiting in line forever. That's hell. That could be fun for a more modern campaign. So you get all kinds of advice like that. They give you examples of campaign frames in campaign fantasy. So if you want to run a campaign with classic fantasy, examples for modern, post-apocalyptic hell, Victorian hell, or a sci-fi hell. And it's not a plot point campaign per se, but they break it down into sections. Like a novice and seasoned, you would run into this, and then, you know, veteran, heroic, you would run into this, and then big climax at legendary, this is what that your campaign might look like. So for those that have a hard time coming up with ideas for campaigns, it gives really good examples. And finally, in that section, cults, they show you how to create your own cults, what part constitute a cult, what it's for, how it works, how it recruits people, and then they give you an example of a cult, two versions of it, a very simple one, and then a full-blown one that can be a whole campaign arc, basically, revolving around that cult. Because, yeah, when you think hell and demons, you think cults. So that's the physical, moral realm representation of hell. So it's really important. Most of them want to bring back some god, some demon, or from the plane, and that's the objective of their cult.
Yeah. This actually, I found this section really helpful, and I'm going to go back and go over it in more depth, especially for the current day or modern and the sci-fi thoughts that they give. As I said, when I first looked at the front of the book, I was sort of put off because I'm in a kind of a fantasy slump at the moment. But yeah, there's some really good stuff in here for modern day. If you were trying to recreate something like the Dresden Files or Buffy, I guess that kind of style, right up until you could. So many different sci-fi ideas to do with cyberpunk and deep space and going into other dimensions. Be really cool. That actually brings up a couple of other questions that were sent in, Eric, which you could answer. So the first one is from Matthew Jones. The first one's from Jan Jetmar. How does it handle the more controversial stuff associated with hell? And does it have an age limit, like the Book of Vile, like the Book of Vile used to have? So in the descriptions here that they've given about how hell can be looked at or run, would you say any of it's over the top or sort of needs to come with a big warning on the front label?
Well, no. I mean, we're talking Savage Worlds here, where it's PG-13. This comes from Pinnacle, and it trickles down to the licensees too. You're not going to find any very explicit material there. Nothing illegal. It's not Book of Vile Darkness level. I think that was a D&D book in 3rd edition or something like that. It was really kind of controversial when it came out. What Savage Worlds does most of the time is being more implicit instead of explicit, which means, I mean, you read this and you can already figure out what these demons would do in detail. You know, the book doesn't tell you, but we have an imagination, right? And it depends on your table. Your group might be really into the really graphic and gory details, and some not. You know, it's like rape in role-playing games. You know, do you deal with that at your table, or you just mention that orcs have raped and pillaged a village, or do you actually show it happening during the campaign? And the book doesn't have to tell you to do that. I think it's a matter of, you know, choice for your own campaign.
Yeah, that kind of leads into Matthew Jones's question, which was, does the book describe more sexual torments of hell? If yes or no, in your opinion, should this be included? I'll take the lead on this one. That's all right. I guess, first of all, you've got to gauge your table, right? The beauty about a role-playing game is that you can, with the consent of the fellow players, you can explore almost anything that you guys feel safe and comfortable with playing at your table. I would strongly recommend that anything that a GM wishes to explore, or even what other players want to explore within a game, is discussed with all people playing before the session starts. If you were going to put in anything that's particularly graphic horror or especially violent or with sexual acts, there has to be some safeties put in place. First of all, everyone must be aware that this is coming up, and that if anyone goes, look, this is too much for me, that there's no pressure on that person to hang around and continue playing. You know, it's almost like a safe word where you can just stop. So I guess from my perspective, anything can be explored in a role-playing game as long as the people involved are comfortable with the subject matter and know that that's what's going to be explored in that session. But there always has to be a qualifying period, and there has to be an option for people to go, nah, not my bag, not my cup of tea, I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like any other games. I mean, of course, characters, you know, have sex and stuff, but that's not something I'm interested in exploring in my campaigns. Sitting there with some friends and talking about, you know, making sweet love to one another. I mean, I know it's Gary's type of stuff, but not for me. I'm not interested, so I skip that part, and people still get the idea that it's still going on, you know, and in the background, but not really explicit. That said, there are a few demons in there where, like I said, it's implied that they partake in some pretty vile sexual practices, but they're not spelled out for you. You make that jump. You know, you decide what it is exactly, or if you want to explore that or not. We're not going to judge. If you're a perv and you like that kind of stuff, Matt, it's up to you, but not for me.
I guess it also comes, you know, that, and when I was thinking about that question, I was thinking about some times when some of the stuff that I'd written in the past that wasn't game related, it was story, you know, short stories or the start of a novel, and they had horror elements, and some of them had, you know, graphic violence in them. And then if you ever want to know whether something's acceptable or not, is just get someone to read, you know, proofread something that you've written like that, and they come back, and if they give you that look, you know you've gone too far.
Yeah.
So be very careful with that.
like pornography. You see it, you know it when you see it, right? So,
Yeah. And the thing about when you look at writing too, it's about show don't tell, right? And you'll find that by implying stuff and leaving it up to the person's imagination, you have a far bigger impact on the story than going through the gory, graphic, nitty-gritty details. You're often better showing the aftermath or talking about the aftermath, implying it, than you are about actually going full bore into the actual act itself.
Yep. All right. So, gonna go do the last chapter here. We're kind of running out of time, but I guess there's just so much content in there and great discussion. But yeah, from the Book of Igaron all the way to now, it's basically a lot of what people call fluff text. There's not a whole lot of mechanics in there. It's GM advice. And, you know, information on hell and the world and all that. But now to close out that book, it's the Book of Legion, and that's your bestiary. So you get over 30 new stat blocks for that. Excuse me. And you also get hellish hazards. So you get, I wrote them all down, but there's like 24 of them, different hazards that you can throw at people. And I know, Paris, you mentioned that before when you were trying to build better encounters. These hazards are gold. They're awesome. You know, amnesia fumes, barbed mesh, bone fall, carnal pool, choking clouds, extreme heat, fiery rain, where you're dealt 1d10 damage for 2 rounds and roll for fire spreading unless you succeed on a survival roll to find cover, and then you get 1 less round of damage on a raise. You avoid all of it. Firestorms, frothing plague, gossamer maze, gelatin flow chamber and trap, nausea, lightning, storm, rock slides, rune mines, spell storms, stone hail, volcanic eruption.
And then you leave Gary's bedroom and move on to the lounge room.
Right. What'd you do on Wednesday? You know, so you get all that stuff that you can throw at your players to make it really tough when they're in hell. Then you get the lesser demons. One of them I really liked, Koralak. He's like a pit fighter type of demon, and he can grab any metal and graft it onto himself. The guy's like over 10 feet tall. He's a battle monster. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, you get a bunch of them, from Halions to Racklings, just run-of-the-mill demons, and some of them are actually really tough. Most of them are actually really tough because they're demons, and unless you have a cold iron weapon, then you get to their weakness, and it's pretty cool. Greater demons, I like the let's see if I can pronounce it, Sarkistric Tor. Basically a giant serpent type of demon. He's in a constant state of decomposition. He's 50 feet long. He can swallow you whole. And if you're wounded, it regurgitates 2d4 undead skeletons that were being digested by him. So that you know how to turn, players will see, oh, it's only one creature. And Savage Worlds is pretty easy when you only have one target. Now you deal wounds, and all of a sudden you got, six undead skeletons that you have to fight, and then you wound it again, and you get more skeletons. And it also has a toxic breath, and the artwork on that is just wow. Well, most of them actually.
The artwork through all of the.
Yeah, because basically 9 out of 10 have an illustration for them, so all of them are illustrated, and they're badass.
They are awesome. In fact, just the different styles, and they thankfully they haven't gone the whole fantasy route with all of them. There's some techno organic ones. There's very futuristic looking ones. There's one that even looks like it's out of Attack on Titan, looks really really cool. I think my favorite though has got to be Manu, the Ever Healing, the Mistress of Rot.
Yeah,
the picture for that is just unreal.
That's
just unreal. And if
you're something gnarly with the sexual practices that they imply in there, it's really gross. And you show that to your players, and wow, it's nasty. And then the Demon Lords, those don't get stat blocks because, if it has a stat block, you can kill it. Those are basically gods. They influence the world in different ways. If you're going to want to fight them, that's probably when you're at legendary, and there's probably a ritual of some kind that you have to perform to even be able to dream about defeating these demons. They're powerful. And what's really cool about it is that when you read their bio, most of them actually started out as regular mortals and then ascended to becoming demon lords, and their stories are really cool, really well done. And then you get the other creatures part. That's where you get the damned. You're in hell, you're trying to walk and there's hands trying to grab you. Those are the damned. They're stuck in the muck and they're just trying to impede your movement. They're trying to grapple you, that kind of stuff. So those are basically undead. You get their stat blocks there. Then the ferryman, those are the ones that ferry you across the river Styx. Frost fighters, Halforged Golem, Unholy Flames, which are basically fire elementals. So, just for the bestiary, you can use that book, and you could use it in Deadlands, you could use it in ETU because they're going to summon demons or they're going to be summoned. You could use these demons for that. Just for that, it's worth the price of admission. So,
the bestiary is impressive, very.
Yeah, very impressive. Showing those pictures to your players, they're not gonna laugh and just demon will kill it. No, maybe we should run. That's what they're gonna think. Any other questions we should go through?
Well, now that we've come to the end of what's in the book, there's a couple of pertinent questions I think that are good to bring in here. So the first is, did we do the Richard Wilcock one? I don't think we did we? No. So if we're using Codex Infernus as a toolkit, Richard asks, if we were using it as a toolkit, which other settings do we think it would be particularly useful for? Which is kind of leads into also what Owen Lean asked, which is the setting is designed so you can add it to other settings. So how would you adapt it to? And he lists Deadlands, ETU, Flash Gordon, Low Life, and Dr. Spectacular and Co. and the search for gold.
Well, how would you?
I think Deadlands and ETU are pretty easy. When I say easy, they tend to lean towards that if you wanted to run in that sort of genre or turn your genre into a more demonic style. Flash Gordon I'm struggling with, I got to be honest.
The same tone.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's pulp science fiction. It just doesn't, I think you'd completely derail your Flash Gordon campaign if you tried to add
because
any
monsters are supposed to be kind of B-movie like and kind of funny, silly, so I don't know.
I could probably do it with Low Life. I would probably still try to keep the tone of Low Life though, and adapt some of the stuff that's in there. I mean, there's some those bits you were talking about with the encounters, changing the encounters up with the various hazards. I think you could do a lot of good stuff with that in Low Life and still keep the tone.
Yeah.
Dr. Spectacular, unfortunately, is not one that I'm across. So, are you? Yeah, maybe you can take that one, Eric.
I only heard about it.
Okay. Yeah. So, how would I find a particular? Look, there's a lot of stuff within this codex that I'm already finding very useful. I've been I've been sort of invigorated in terms of across fantasy, modern, and sci-fi. In just in the artwork and picking out just small bits from it. So I'm really looking forward to going back in more detail. Anytime evil and the consequences of evil come up, I think this book would be great to reference, at least to give you an idea of maybe how to take it. But then that leads us to. Oh, sorry. Did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already mentioned ETU, how I would use it, but for Deadlands, you know, they have the fear levels in Deadlands, but mechanically they're not all that well explained. You know, it's very vague, but right. I could see using some of these hellish hazards in a fear level, maybe especially in a Deadlands. You know, you put these hellish hazards in there, that'd be pretty nasty. Another setting, it doesn't exist, but there was this TV show, I think it only lasted one season, in the 90s, called Brimstone. And it was a show.
I love that.
Isn't that amazing?
That was a fantastic show. Yeah, I was cut when they stopped that, man. That was great.
Yeah, so basically, for those who don't know, it's a show about a cop who ends up in hell, but then a bunch of demons escape from hell. And the devil tasks this cop. He gives him the power to go back on Earth as long as he brings back those demons. And Codex Infernus would be a great tool for a campaign like that. I've been wanting to run something like that for a long time, and that would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. What an awesome idea. Yeah. Especially like as he wakes up every morning and all he's got is what he had when he died, which was what, $13 something, and his loaded gun and his badge, and that's it. And he had to. So these souls or these demons would then inhabit human bodies, who would then do crimes around the city. So he'd have to investigate the crimes and actually determine if they were a demon. And then he had to shoot him in the eye, didn't he? Because that was the window to the soul. That's how he stopped them. That was a brilliant show. Yeah, absolutely awesome. I would actually, going back to Richard's question, I would actually, if I was going to make like a Hellboy game, I would maybe take Weird Wars 2 and this Codex Infernus and mesh them together, possibly with elements of the Superpower Companion as well. I think that would be all I need to make that. If I was going to make the Dresden that goes to another question, which takes us to Garrett Weinstein's question, which is, if you were going to build your own setting, and you've already discussed Brimstone, based on your favorite parts of this codex, what would they look like? And since it's about hell, if there was a setting based on these parts you least liked about Codex Infernus, what might that look like? Your own personal savage hell.
Yeah, my own personal savage hell from my least favorite part of this book would be the Gazetteer from the Book of Aegeron. It would be you're stuck in hell, having to read stories over and over again. That'd be my own.
Mine would be similar, except I'd be stuck in office cubicles on the phone all the time.
With the
that's
with
my own
upset customer, with an upset customer.
Yeah,
yeah. Favorite parts.
But if I was gonna...
Yeah, I think my favorite parts are the trappings for the powers, and of course all the edges and the bestiary. And I think with that, something like Brimstone, or maybe just a more generic demon hunter in the modern world type of campaign. Using the holy symbols and purification and demonic pacts and all that stuff. That, to me, that it's a wealth of hooks and ideas and inspiration for a campaign.
Yeah. For me, I think I was really excited to see the modern day and sci-fi stuff in this book. So I'm actually thinking of maybe running an Event Horizon style one shot.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that movie, Eric?
Yeah, a long time ago.
That was free. Yeah. that faith mechanic, using faith without the actual miracle arcane background, that gave me just such insight into maybe creating a Savage Dresden Files. I think that's given me some excitement there. And there was an old GDW game called Dark Conspiracy, which I was a huge fan of. Still got all the books, and I've been thinking about converting that over to Savage Worlds. And there's a certain amount of elements in terms of the dark tech stuff that could be used from that Hellforged equipment that could be brought over. I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, for sci-fi that'd be great. It's something like Warhammer 40K, where the void, creatures of the void and all that, these demons that would work quite well. Some like Nemesis, I could use it with Nemesis because they have a bestiary in Nemesis, but this one would greatly expand on it, and especially if you add like some type of priests in there, maybe change it up a little bit, that'd be great. So any other questions that we didn't touch on? No, I think we covered them all.
I think we covered. Yeah.
So thank you people for all these questions.
Yo, motherfuckers, you all best back up. I always got a gun, I always come strap up. This ain't a game of pool, it ain't no time for no rack up. It's the motherfucking time for the motherfucking wrap up. Anyone who disagrees will get smack up. See me back in school when I shouldn't have learned to add up. Found a gun on the floor, instead I picked that up. Anyway, sorry, I'm motherfucking back up. What I'm trying to say is it's time for the wrap up. Yeah, this one goes out to all the ladies and all the men out there. Everyone in the front row, grease up. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I guess it's now time for your conclusion there, Eric. How do you rate this in your professional opinion as a wild eye? How many wild willies does it get?
5. 5 out of 5.
5 wild willies out of 5.
Awesome. There was only, like I said, the cover, the title. I think it could have been done better, and then the gazetteer section of Igaron, but I probably wouldn't play a campaign in that setting, so that's not really all that important to me. I'd use it more as a toolkit. There are times though that it feels, well, I listed the names of writers on this, but I think it shows sometimes where maybe there were too many writers on this project where some chapters don't flow well and others, or maybe it's just a personal taste, but you can clearly see that there's different writing styles in this book, so that might make it a bit more difficult to read for some people. Artwork, we kept mentioning this, it's plentiful, basically every other page, and all of it is gorgeous. All artwork. David Jarvis, if you're listening to this, teach me how to make a book like that. It's such a gorgeous book. I want to know. You get people on Kickstarter all the time that they use these funds, and you look at the finished product and where did that money go to? And then you look at Codex Infernus. Granted, I think they made quite a bit on Kickstarter for that, but the production value, wow. It's the guy makes books for Pathfinder too, and the big system, so he's used to high standard level of quality, and it shows. The first 3 chapters for me are my favorite, and then the bestiary also badass. So the mechanics part, the Book of Creation, Book of Making, and the one with the setting rules, those are amazing. You can use them in any setting, and we've already discussed that. So, great book, great tool to have in your arsenal as a GM, and not just for fantasy, like you said, sci-fi, modern. It has a tone, it has a dark, gritty tone to it. So, stuff like Low Life and Flash Gordon, stuff that are a bit more light. I don't see it mixing it very well with it, but why not?
Yeah, I think for me, where it really ticks the boxes for me is, while we've sort of said that bit in the middle is just too much for people like you and I in terms of how in depth it was and how much to read through. But some people really, really like that. But on the flip side, there is so much content in here that I've already picked up just at a glance. Just there's a that paragraph there is perfect. I'm going to take that out, and it's already inspired me for 3 adventures. And this artwork is amazing. And it covers both sides, which is pretty rare. A lot of books, you've either got to sift through pages and pages of information to get to something that really clicks for you. Whereas right from the get-go, this book has got, as you said, the first couple of chapters has just got stuff to offer straight off the bat. You can import it into a lot of different settings, or even give you the inspiration to create your own settings and campaigns. That bestiary is just amazing. Just amazing. When you stack it up against a lot of other Savage World bestiaries, I think that goes right to the top of the class. There'd be very few that could be sitting there with it. It's so for me, it gets 5 possessed taints out of 5.
Very nice. Taint. The Paris the Savage Taint.
Oh, please don't give me that name.
It's done. It's out in the open now.
I actually prefer the cultured savage. Thank you very much.
Or the whatever the case may be, savage.
The whatever the case may be, savage. That's
that too. So yeah, guys. I mean, an hour and a half into this now. I hope this review will make you want to buy it, because I really think you should have this book. Just as much as you should have the fantasy companion, the horror companion, sci-fi companion. This is quality-wise, content-wise, it's just, if not better than any of those companions I just mentioned. It's just that useful. So, yeah, go check it out. They've got a bunch of little add-ons for that. They have a card action deck. Looks pretty badass too. And like I said, Forces of Light, if you want to be more paladin type of characters going to hell, you'll need Forces of Light. Well, you don't need it, but it'd be pretty good to have. So, and it meshes well with basically any other settings, mechanics wise, just seamless. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Paris, for joining me for that. I really enjoyed having that conversation, that discussion with you, going back and forth. And maybe we need to do this again. Maybe you'll be the next one to do a review for us.
Oh, maybe. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm actually I'm really grateful to be part of this one, because, as I said, this book had slipped past me, and I'm with you. I think any Savage World GM should have this on their library shelf. I think it's a great book, and kudos to the writers and artists. It's fantastic.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks, and hopefully the rest of the crew will be back this time, Alexis and Gary. And enjoy your summer. See you later.
The Wild Die Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by Pinnacle Entertainment Group or official Pinnacle licensees. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of the respected owners. All music and artwork is used with permission of Pinnacle Entertainment Group. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of the Wild Die Podcast.